April, May, June, July. Summer is officially here, and I don't know about you, but from Zuma to the Laguna, I'm in it to win it for Malibu. I'm having fun. For a long time, I had mixed feelings about summer. I live in Cali, so it gets up to 10,000 degrees in May. It won't cool off until the end of October. But that doesn't matter. That gives you an excuse to have frozen drinks, not those, and cool off at the beach or pool. You just went swimsuit shopping, you're feeling yourself. You might even feel like a mermaid, which has become the defining mythological figure for this time of year. Since the last few decades, mermaids are known for being colorful and captivating childhood icons, sharing the glamorous fairy tale pedestal alongside fairies and princesses. And with the mermaid core aesthetic, which gained prominence roughly around 2022, mermaids are also a Pinterest-ready style inspiration. However, mermaids weren't always a childhood fantasy, defined by their Barbie-ish sparkles. They were mythologized as dangerous temptresses of the sea. They were a specific fear and allure. So what inspired this change? How did mermaids get a girly pop makeover? We're going to look into how mermaids went from femme fatales of the sea to harmless but spirited divas of the waves. In this video, I won't mention any water nymphs or nymphs in general because that's another mythological figure to cover for another time. So now, let's get started. Before there were mermaids as we know them today, there were sirens. The concept of sirens originated in ancient Greece, where they were depicted as human-headed birds who had hypnotic singing voices. They were famously depicted in the poem Odyssey, where Odysseus had to tie himself to the ship's mast to resist their singing. But the earliest text describing sirens with fishtails started with Liber Monstrorum in the 7th century, which catalogued mythological creatures written in Latin. That's how far back this was. The mythology of mermaids have existed in various cultures throughout the world. In medieval British folklore, mermaids were described as unlucky omens. Similarly in Scotland, some versions of the ballad Sir Patrick Spens feature a mermaid telling a ship's crew that they will never reach land again. Whether or not this mermaid was only telling their future or was trying to scare the crew is up to interpretation. During what would be considered the Middle Ages in China, throughout the Song dynasty, a collection of stories featured a tale of Hiranu, which translates to sea human fish. The females of this kind were very beautiful, with hair like a horse's tail. I think now that'd be considered an insult, and were kept in the ponds of widows and widowers. In West, Central, and Southern Africa, Mother of the Water are evil but seductive water spirits who lure men into their doom. Brazilian mythology has the Lara, known as seductresses of the Amazon River, who would, quote-unquote, drown men by passion with their enchanting singing voices. Even in all these different cultures, mermaids and mermaid-esque creatures have the distinct quality of being femme fatale-coded. With the increase of trade in the golden age of piracy during the 17th and 18th centuries, stories involving mermaids were gaining more prominence. Sailing was all about entering unknown territory. You never know what might hit you next. Mermaids were a fitting symbol of the unpredictability and danger of the ocean, and countless tales emerged of a seductive mermaid, or at least siren, luring sailors into their doom. But because of their sirenic and seductive qualities, they were often described in the context of a lustful fantasy. Mermaids were also featured in paintings, typically holding a mirror or hair comb, to emphasize their vanity. This further reflected the dangers of mermaids, as this type of self-indulgence was considered one of the more corrupt traits in women. There's no trace of modesty here. But foremost, mermaids have always been portrayed as the other. There weren't any works that depicted the point of view of a mermaid until the 1830s in Denmark. The Hans Christian Andersen story, The Little Mermaid, depicted these sea creatures in a way that hasn't been seen before. The plot focuses on a mermaid who lives in an underwater kingdom. After falling in love at first sight with a human prince, she exchanges her voice for a chance to become human. As she walks on land, literally every painful step feels like a nightmare. She does what she can for the prince to fall in love with her, but really, it just wasn't meant to be. The prince marries someone else, but if the mermaid gets rid of him, she can return to her life in the sea. But instead, she leaps into the water, becomes sea foam, and later gains a soul. This isn't really a tragedy, but is a bittersweet story. At the time when The Little Mermaid was released, mermaids weren't depicted as fully fleshed characters. They were often used as symbols of the dangers of falling into temptation. The mermaid in this story was self-sacrificing and is driven by intense feelings of love and belonging. The story is a metaphor for the pain and heartbreak of unrequited love, all while feeling like an outsider. I interpret that the story also portrays the dangers of changing yourself to convince someone to fall in love with you. The mermaid went through a lot of pain, physical and emotional, for the prince to marry her, but it didn't work. even magical mermaids can lose themselves chasing something that wasn't right for them. This story opened the doors for mermaids to be portrayed with complex personalities, or even romantic figures, but they may or may not still have some siren qualities to stir the air. For years, mermaids were a fantasy, portrayed in the golden age of Hollywood and cartoons. There were 2 mermaid romance films released in 1948, Mr. Peabody and the Mermaid and Miranda, where both of these stories focus on a human man falling for a mermaid. Mr. Peabody and the Mermaid is a work of its time. A guy uses a mermaid to escape his midlife crisis. The mermaid is silent and literally doesn't speak up for herself. Miranda, however, we don't talk enough about this character. During a fishing trip, a man is captured by a mermaid who won't let him go until he shows her the city of London. He agrees to this, which sparks a literal fish out of water story, where Miranda has fun in the human world and takes advantage of her natural flirtatiousness. She's spirited, and with her enchanting aura, we see echoes of her siren roots. With mermaids being portrayed on a larger scale, they embodied everything fantastical and would be ideal to see in a place like Neverland. Neverland is a magical island with pirates and a fairy with a stank attitude, so mermaids would be a perfect addition to this land of fantasy. But let's just say, these mermaids are not girls. They start hating on Wendy when she literally did nothing and tried to drag her into the water when she said multiple times that she doesn't want to swim, and all Peter does is laugh. Useless. They were only trying to drown her. I've said it in the fairies video and I will say it again. Wendy had a rough time in Neverland. She was surrounded by haters and fake friends. She deserved better. But these mermaids in Peter Pan highlight their darker side. They're spiteful, dangerous, and vain. But at least they're Pinterest ready. Mermaids were shown in a more romantic context in 1984's Splash. This story takes from the Little Mermaid model, where a mermaid pretends to be human, with her true identity being kept a secret, as long as she stays away from water. While Madison is far from being the archetypical vain and treacherous siren, she has her own set of otherworldly quirks. She walks around in her birthday suit, isn't shy about kisses, and is excitable, especially when it comes to love. But much like a siren, she has the ability to captivate everyone around her. Not that she notices too much. Splash was one of the defining rom-coms of the 1980s. So naturally, it influenced the softening image of mermaids. Like the Mean Girl Squad from Disney's Peter Pan was readapted in 1991's Hook as not only helpful, but romantic and sensual, even giving Peter a kiss. But arguably, this was another example of mermaids being portrayed in an actualized manner. They kind of look like Starburst. But arguably the most famous and recognized mermaid in pop culture is Ariel from Disney's The Little Mermaid. Disney wanted to make an animated adaptation of the Hans Christian Andersen story after the release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. But that idea was put on the back burner until director Ron Clements came across the Little Mermaid story in a bookstore. As the Walt Disney Company was undergoing financial and artistic struggles during the 1970s and most of the 80s, The Little Mermaid returned the Disney formula, bringing back fairy tales, princesses, and love stories with happily ever afters. This movie was going to be proudly whimsical and enchanting in an underwater setting. As for mermaid representation, for audiences to identify with her, Ariel is accurately written for someone her age. She makes decisions without thinking about them too much, rebels against authority, and idealizes her crush. She longs for a different life, feeling that there's something bigger and more important set out for her. Ariel adapting to the human world can be relatable to young viewers, as they're also experiencing the challenge of fitting in and navigating identity. With this story being from the point of view of a mermaid, they weren't mysterious outsiders. They were just like you, but lived underwater. The Little Mermaid happened to be a huge hit and launched the Disney Renaissance, as well as influencing the growing presence of mermaids in children's media. There was a lot of strong marketing appeal. Mermaids lived in a magical underwater environment with various sea creatures and fun places to explore. They were also known for their long flowing hair, shimmering jewel-colored tails, and sported lots of seashells and pearls. Just all the stuff that kids love. The 90s had the first appearance of Mermaid Barbie. Her hair changes when she's in the water. Some Lisa Frank products featured mermaid iconography. And of course, there was the Little Mermaid series and sequel where Ariel's daughter dreams of the mermaid world. From the Barbie Mermaidia series to notebooks, mermaids have claimed a space in the childhood market, but also hold a certain appeal for the tween demographic. Based on how we define internet aesthetics, Aquamarine is the defining mermaid core film. It's about a girl who's half sushi. This movie was released in 2006, but has developed a bit of a fandom amongst Gen Z because it encapsulates the ideal summer energy. It's stylish, witty, upbeat, and has several quotable lines such as, "We're not fictional, we're discreet," and "I found two new men to love. Their names are Ben and Jerry." Two girls from a beach town discover a sassy, confident mermaid who wants to escape an arranged marriage by proving to her dad that true love exists. Aquamarine comes across less as a mysterious mythological figure and more of a bestie with a fun, bubbly exterior, and is certain that true love is real. Same! Throughout this film, we get magazine montages, shopping montages, and a beach-friendly soundtrack. Everything about this movie is a pure vibe. Aqua's mermaid skills consist of using a seashell as a phone and has starfish earrings that literally complement her. Starfish may be suck-ups, but they never lie. But her search for true love isn't as easy as she imagined. Raymond doesn't seem too enchanted by Aqua's mermaid powers. Their first interaction has her asking him if he loves her, and he just says no, but she's hot. Rude, doesn't even love her at first sight. But afterwards, he gives her a beautiful band-aid when she falls off a bike. He also teaches her how to dance and seems genuinely interested in being around her. And while they can't realistically end up together, she is a mermaid after all, we still see a representation of a healthy relationship. He did mention that Aqua isn't like the other girls, but we'll just ignore that. But Aquamarine is foremost about the importance of friendships and platonic love. Her dad finally believes true love exists because her friends genuinely care for each other. Callie Algrim of Insider wrote that Aquamarine is a rom-com insofar as it tells a boy meets girl story, but the deeper, more honest love between its young female leads is the film's true emotional core. While Aquamarine comes from a very different world, they form a bond through trust, loyalty, and lightheartedness. Some of the simplest aspects in friendships can feel magical. Aqua's uniqueness is what draws everyone in, except the hating mean girl, but she doesn't like anyone. And her tail is shiny. 2006 was such a good year for mermaids because there was also the beloved friendship-based TV series H2O Just Add Water. I have a feeling that a lot of you watching love this show. After three friends are stranded on the mysterious Mako Island, they find a magical moon pool under a volcano. After returning home, they discover they've become mermaids, at least after they touch water, and they have their own unique water powers. The secret can only be known to them. And Lewis. Similarly to Aquamarine, H2O focuses on relatable coming-of-age experiences, such as the struggles of fitting in, crushes, and going to parties, which are all even more difficult if you have to hide that you are a mermaid. As the series goes on, the storylines start focusing more on the girls' romantic entanglements, one of which features the reformed bad boy trope. In the third season, Emma left, so all that was left was Ricky, Cleo, and Bella, who's a bit more experienced with being a mermaid. This show vaguely reminds me of a live-action mermaid version of The Winx Club, but that's just me. There's a similar focus on friendship and working together with one's unique abilities. This show has gained a devoted fan base for its cozy vibe, fantasy elements, and just the simple fact that mermaids are investing. I remember around the 4th or 5th grade, I thought since the Twilight universe had vampires and werewolves, who also lived regular lives, I imagined that mermaids also existed and kept their mermaidness a secret. They also had like little bedazzled phones and used them even when they were mermaids. This was just something I made up in my head when I probably should have paid attention to class. Given how popular mermaids have become in girly media, this developed into the internet-based mermaid core aesthetic. Mermaid core fashions typically feature aquatic color palettes, flowing silhouettes, shiny or translucent materials, and elements such as, of course, pearls and seashells. This style was even shown in high fashion collections, including Versace Spring-Summer 2021, as well as Tom Ford and Blue Marine for Spring-Summer 2023. Kind of like the coconut girl aesthetic of 2021 and the medieval Y2K look of 2025, mermaid core was the look of the summer in 2023. But you can embrace it now. Who cares about these arbitrary rules? Also, in 2023, there was the Little Mermaid remake, and this movie was such a missed opportunity. It had so much to work with. Like, we could have gotten Cinderella levels here. There was the groundbreaking I Want number, Part of Your World, and the reprise, which is such an iconic Disney moment. There is a rare emphasis on fantasy and magic that a lot of movies don't seem to focus on anymore. This was about love, self-discovery, and it helps that Halle Bailey has the voice of a siren and angel at the same time. But instead, we got bland lighting, a forced tone, and awkward-looking CGI creatures. But this is standard practice for live-action Disney remakes, so what else were you expecting? Something good? I will note that after the useless backlash, Daryl Hannah, who played Madison in Splash, defended Hallie and called out the bitter, overgrown haters. We love mermaids supporting other mermaids. And going back to mermaid core trends, the looks delivered on the red carpet were pristine. The designers knew what they were doing. How come Disney didn't? As for the state of future mermaid media, I think most likely we're going to see more market-friendly, visually appealing mermaids, as well as darker, more scientifically accurate, scary mermaids in horror and science fiction works. Might we see a cultural phenomenon like Disney's The Little Mermaid? Maybe. Since their roots of being portrayed as sirens, mermaids have always been intriguing figures. The ocean is a large and mysterious place. Who knows who could really be inhabiting the waters? Historically, in mermaid media, the depiction of mermaids haven't been very intersectional. But who knows? We probably might get a movie or TV show about Mother of the Water or the Lara mythologies. I'm open to that. We need more mythology in general. But with mermaids currently associated with girly media, it's fascinating to see how a creature that was depicted as such an alluring or treacherous fantasy now has an image of freedom, adventure, and friendship. It's the power of girly pop rebranding. Always remember to choose your own destiny. If there's one thing we can learn from mermaids, is to embrace some whimsy and magic in your everyday life. And if you can, go to the beach. It's fun, and I don't think you'll regret it. That's all I have for the changing image of mermaids. For more info on how you can live a more mermaid-esque life, I have a Patreon where you can find the tools to live a more romanticized life, as well as my unfiltered takes on social topics and interpersonal relationships. Thank you all for watching, and hope to see you all in the next one. Bye!